YouTube. So today we're going to look at some incredibly useful proofreading tips, and ultimately I think the reason that this is useful is that proofreading properly can change your translation from a good translation into a great translation. So I'm going to share some of my top tips with you today. Watch the end because I've got one super secret tip that will really help you, and if this video is useful, don't also forget of course to like and subscribe. So let's go. So ultimately, the first question you might be asking yourself is, why proofread my work? I'm a translator, I'm a professional linguist or editor. Surely my writing is great and I don't make any mistakes. Why bother? It's true that even the best of us, we make mistakes when we're writing. I know for myself when I'm translating, I'm often listening to some music, or I might get in a little bit of a flow of, translating a long section. And, my mind may go elsewhere. I may be concentrating on a particular translation problem rather than checking my spelling. So I think that ultimately we all make mistakes, and this is just proofreading itself is just a way to finally brush up and ultimately give your client or the agency you're working for the best possible work, which is what we all want. So one piece of advice I would start with is, I know some people like to proofread directly in their cat tool as they can see everything on a bilingual format. I think that's great, but ultimately exporting to the final format that you're going to get, for example, here is this Word document, I think is a really good thing to do, because there may be little things that crop up that you might not pick up on. For example, this image caption you can see here, it might be with no context potentially straight in your cat tool, and ultimately you get to see the final layout, and I think it leaves everything a bit fresh in your mind as well to see any extra errors that might crop up. So this text here, I've just taken off Wikipedia and made a few little adjustments to, so thank you, Wikipedia. Basically, what I would advise you to, this is just an exercise as I would do it. Obviously, you're going to start through and probably have a provisional read through. I will always try and look for anything that stands out. Sometimes you're reading your work and you think, that's a little bit off. If we can see here that Emperor Napoleon at the summit of his fortunes, I think that's probably a little bit of a direct translation. Let's change that to peak. I think that suits better. So as you go through, obviously you'll just be able to pick out any errors, any small problems that have turned up. For your reference, the yellow highlighting here is just so that I can remember where these errors that I've introduced are. They don't have any other meaning. Ultimately, another really useful thing to do is to have a checklist, because ultimately, particularly if you're working with a style guide, there may be issues that are really hard to pick out. Often in style guides, there are specific requirements that your client may want for numbers, and they can be really difficult to work with, and maybe they may differ from, whether you're working with UK or US English, they may differ from client to client. And a really good way of dealing with that is actually just to look at all of the numbers in the document individually. And I'll give you a tip to do that now. If you hit Control and F in Word, you want to basically start by typing in find, go to square bracket 0 to 9, and then square bracket, click use wildcards, and then hit find next, and you will be able to go through every number in your document individually, and this will really help you to pick out any of these pesky numbers that are not formatted correctly. For example, here I can see I've got a hyphen or 2 missing here. I can just go through and for every number think, is that done properly? Is that right? It's quite common that style guides will have the fact that you should put numbers, 1 to 9 or 1 to 10 or 1 to 12, they should be written out. So here, as this is highlighted, I can think, yeah, this should be written out. This should be 2. So that's one trick I think will be really useful. It's good for picking out, currencies that might be formatted incorrectly, or dates as well. Just using this method, it'll take you, 2 minutes to just whiz through and check all your numbers. I find that's a really good trick that really helps me in doing things correctly. Something else that you might want to put in your checklist are terms that you've noticed you've made mistakes with throughout the translation. For example, this piece is about the Arc de Triomphe in France. I might have noted to myself, just on my checklist, that I've been spelling this incorrectly. So if I can have a quick find and replace, and I can search here for Arc de, let's have a look through and just quickly check, have I managed to spell this word correctly throughout the document? So we're going to want to take the wildcards off there. Hold on, there we go, perfect. So here we can say, oh great, that's spelled correctly. That one's correct. But hey, look at this one that's come up. Oh, there we go, naughty, naughty. Let's get that one done correctly. So essentially being able to search through your checklist will be really helpful in terms of getting some of these small issues removed and ironed out. It's good as well if you have issues with the Oxford comma, you might have to or have to not use it. For example, if you don't want to use the Oxford comma in your work, you could search for comma or comma and that would also help you to basically pick out any instances that you wanted to get rid of, which is really useful. So final tips I think I would put through. It can be really useful if you do have the time just to let your translation sit for an hour or a day and come back to it fresh the next day. I always find that really helps me do my best work because I see the entire document in a new light. So I did promise you one super final tip. So it's this. If you want to basically eliminate all the errors, if you want to get your translation reading like an absolute original, try this. Print your document and try working on paper. I don't know why it is, but I always find that when I print, I will find mistakes that I would never find digitally on screen. And it's not just me that thinks this. I've had a lot of other translators and editors tell me they find exactly the same thing. I think it may just be the fact that you're taking your text and seeing it in a new environment that you wouldn't do otherwise. It may just be something about the paper word that we, perceive a little bit better. But I think that that's something that will really help. Try it yourself. Let me know if there's anything I've missed or if there's any questions you have about the proofreading process. And I really hope that those tips will help you to produce better work. So let me know how it gets on. All right, see you later.